I'm 36 years old, and my husband died 6 months ago. A car accident. One moment he was driving to work, the next moment I was getting a call from a hospital telling me he wasn't coming home. The grief has been suffocating. The kind of pain that makes it hard to breathe some days. I've been going through the motions. Work, therapy, sleep, repeat. Trying to figure out how to exist in a world where he doesn't anymore. And then my sister decided to weaponize my grief in the most calculated, deliberate way I've ever witnessed. At a child's birthday party. In front of 50 people. And I realized something that day. Sometimes the people who hurt you most aren't strangers. They're the ones you grew up with. Let me set this up because it matters context-wise. My sister, let's call her T, and I had a complicated relationship growing up. She was always competing with me for attention, for validation, for anything that made her feel like she mattered more. When we were kids, if I did well on a test, she'd make it about how the teacher was playing favorites. If I got a lead in a school play, she'd tell people it was just because of nepotism. She built her entire identity around being the one who was wronged by having me as a sister. By the time we were adults, we'd kind of made peace with it. Not real peace. Just the kind of peace where you accept that someone is always going to resent you and you stop trying to fix it. We'd see each other at family events. We'd be cordial. We'd make small talk. But there was always this underlying current of resentment from her side. She'd gotten married about 8 years ago. She had a son, let's call him L, who was turning 1 year old. My husband, let's call him D, had been the love of my life. We'd been married for 10 years. We were planning to have kids. We were building a life together. And then he was just gone. The funeral was 3 months before this birthday party. It was devastating. I could barely function through it. My sister came. She sat in the back. She didn't offer to help with anything. She didn't reach out afterward. She just kind of disappeared from my life right when I needed support the most. But apparently, she was planning something. I didn't know it at the time, but she'd been planning what she was going to do at that birthday party for weeks. She'd told certain family members to make sure they came. She'd made sure my parents knew about it. She'd basically set the whole thing up. And I walked into that party thinking I was just going to smile and pretend to be okay for a few hours. The party was at a nice venue. One of those places that does kids' parties where they have activities and food and decoration packages. There were balloons everywhere. A little man in a giant costume doing entertainment. Food tables. The whole thing. I brought a gift. A really nice gift. I was trying. I was grieving, but I was trying to show up for my family. T saw me and she hugged me. Actually hugged me like we were close. She said, "I'm so glad you came. I have something I want to tell everyone, and I wanted you to be here when I said it." I thought maybe she was going to announce another pregnancy or something. Something happy. Something normal. I had no idea what was actually coming. After about an hour, she gathered everyone around. About 50 people. Family, friends, people I didn't even know. She had her husband hold L, her son, and she got in front of everyone with a microphone. Yes, a microphone. For a 1-year-old's birthday party. Red flag number 1. She said, "Thank you all for being here to celebrate L's first birthday. This is such a special day for our family. And I wanted to share something with you, all that's been on my heart." I was already feeling uncomfortable. There was something performative about this. Something intentional. She continued, "Life is short. We never know when it's going to end. And I've realized that we need to cherish every single moment with the people we love." She looked directly at me when she said that, and my stomach dropped. I knew. Somehow, I just knew that whatever was coming was designed to hurt me. She took a breath and said, "I've decided that we're going to try to give Elle a sibling right away. We're not going to wait. We're not going to put it off. Because you just never know what's going to happen. And I want Elle to grow up with brothers and sisters. I want my children to have each other. So we're going to start trying for another baby immediately." Then she paused, and she said, "And I think my sister understands this more than anyone, since she didn't get to have the children she wanted with her husband before he died. So I wanted to announce this in front of her so she could celebrate this moment with me. Because family is everything." The entire room went silent, and then people started clapping. Slowly at first, then building. And I was standing there absolutely frozen. My sister had just taken the most painful raw part of my grief, the fact that Dee and I had wanted kids and would never have them together, and she'd weaponized it in front of 50 people to make my pain about her happiness. She'd announced her pregnancy plan at my expense. She'd made my tragedy about her joy. And she'd done it in a way that made it look like she was being sensitive and inclusive. She'd positioned herself as the good sister who was thinking about my pain while celebrating her own fertility. It was so calculated, so deliberately cruel. I didn't cry. I don't cry in front of people anymore. Not since the funeral. But I felt something shift inside me that day. A clarity. A realization that my sister wasn't just thoughtless, she was fundamentally selfish in a way that made her dangerous to be around. She would use anything, weaponize anything, if it meant making herself the center of attention. I walked out. Literally just turned around and left the party. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't make a scene. I just left. My parents followed me out. They tried to explain that T hadn't meant any harm. That she was just excited about her family growing. That I was being oversensitive. And I just looked at them and said, "She announced her pregnancy plan using my dead husband as a prop. If you think that's okay, then you're both complicit." I got in my car and I drove home. And I made a decision right there. A decision that my sister had made for me, really. A decision that I was going to stop protecting her feelings. I was going to stop going to family events where she was. I was going to stop pretending that we had a relationship worth maintaining. And I was going to make sure that she understood, beyond any doubt, exactly what she'd done. I didn't confront her immediately. Not because I was afraid of confrontation, but because I wanted to be strategic. I wanted her to think that maybe I'd just been emotional. Maybe I'd calmed down. Maybe we could move past it. I wanted her to get comfortable. And then I was going to make sure she understood what she'd actually done. The first thing I did was reach out to my parents. I called them and I told them exactly what I was feeling. I said, "Your daughter just weaponized my grief to celebrate her own fertility in front of 50 people. And you told me I was being oversensitive. That's not okay. If you want a relationship with me, you need to acknowledge that what she did was cruel and intentional. And you need to stop making excuses for her behavior." My mom actually got defensive. She said T was always trying to include me. She said T was actually being thoughtful by mentioning my grief. I told her that was gaslighting. That what T had done was the opposite of thoughtful. It was cruel. It was attention-seeking. And it showed me that my sister hadn't actually internalized anything about my pain. She'd just seen my pain as an opportunity to make herself look good. My dad was quieter. He listened. And then he said something that actually made sense. He said, I think T is jealous of you. I think she always has been. And when you lost D, she saw that as her chance to finally have something you didn't. A complete family. A husband. Kids. All the things you wanted. He was right. T had been waiting for my life to get worse so hers could seem better. And when it did, she'd taken the opportunity to publicly celebrate that disparity. I told my parents that I was going to go no contact with T. That I wasn't going to any more family events where she was. That if they wanted a relationship with me, they had to understand that their daughter had made a choice to hurt me and I was making a choice to protect myself. My mom cried. My dad understood. Then I did something that surprised everyone. I sent T a message. Not angry. Not accusatory. Just clear. I wrote, I want you to know that I understand what you did at Elle's birthday party. I understand that you announced your pregnancy plans using my grief as a prop to make yourself look good. I understand that you've always resented me and that my husband's death felt like an opportunity to level the playing field. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm done. I'm not going to family events where you are. I'm not going to pretend to have a relationship with you. And I'm going to make sure that anyone in our family understands exactly why. You made your choice. I'm making mine. She responded immediately. She said I was being dramatic. That she was just trying to include me. That I was making it all about myself. She said the classic narcissistic move. I was the one who was hurting her with my accusations. She was the victim of my misunderstanding. It was infuriating but also clarifying. She wasn't going to take accountability. She was going to gaslight me instead. Fine. I was prepared for that. I copied the entire exchange and I sent it to my parents. I said, this is what accountability looks like from her. Gaslighting. Blame shifting. Playing victim. This is why I'm going no contact. And this is why I need you to understand that this isn't me being dramatic. This is me protecting myself from someone who's demonstrated that she will hurt me for attention. What I didn't do was make it public. I didn't post about it on social media. I didn't send messages to extended family. I didn't make it into this big dramatic thing where I was trying to turn everyone against her. I just communicated my boundaries clearly to the people who needed to know. And I walked away. But here's where things got interesting. Because when you walk away from a narcissist, they tend to panic. T started reaching out through mutual friends. She told people that I was being cruel and cold. She told people that I was overreacting to a comment at a birthday party. She told people that I was punishing her for being happy when I should be supporting her. She was trying to control the narrative. And my friends, the ones who actually cared about me, started pushing back. They'd been at the party. They'd witnessed what she did. And they were appalled. One of my close friends actually told T that what she'd done was cruel and that she should apologize. T blocked her. Another friend sent T a message saying that my grief wasn't a prop for her happiness. T accused her of being a bad friend to T. Within about 2 weeks, T had isolated herself. She'd pushed away every mutual friend who'd tried to make her understand what she'd actually done. She'd tried to recruit my parents to convince me to come back into the family fold. And when they refused to do that, she accused them of choosing me over her. She was having a full emotional breakdown because people weren't accepting her narrative that I was the villain. My parents did something really important. They sat T down and they told her that they'd heard her out, they'd considered her perspective, and they believed that she'd been cruel and they believed I'd been right to walk away. They said they loved her, but they didn't condone her behavior. They said if she wanted to maintain a relationship with them, she had to acknowledge what she'd done and apologize to me. She refused. She doubled down. She said I was the one who needed to apologize for accusing her of intentional cruelty. She said she'd done nothing wrong. She said my grief was making me paranoid and suspicious. And my parents, to their credit, told her that if that was going to be her position, then they were done engaging with her about it. T reached out to me one more time. She sent me a message saying she was sorry that I'd misunderstood her, that she hadn't meant to hurt me, that I was being unreasonable, that she wanted to move past this and have a normal sister relationship. It was a pseudo-apology, an apology that wasn't actually an apology. It was an apology for my feelings, not for her actions. I didn't respond. About 3 months after the birthday party incident, T announced that she was actually pregnant. Like, genuinely pregnant. She'd gotten pregnant exactly as quickly as she'd said she would. And she made sure to tell everyone in the family immediately. She sent a group text to my parents, to some aunts and uncles, to basically everyone. And she added a comment at the end that said, "I'm so grateful that my sister gets to witness my happiness even though she's going through such a difficult time." I was livid. She was still trying to position herself as the good sister. Still trying to make my pain about her grace and generosity. Still trying to rewrite the narrative where she was the victim of my misunderstanding and I was the one being cruel and selfish. But here's the thing about narcissists. They give you plenty of ammunition if you're willing to pay attention. And I was paying very close attention. I went back through all of our messages. I went back through all of the interactions from the past several years. And I realized that this wasn't a one-off incident. This was a pattern. A deliberate, calculated pattern of her using my pain or my struggles to make herself look good. When I got married, she'd spent the entire wedding week talking about her relationship problems. When my mom had health issues, T had announced that she was starting therapy because she was so emotionally available and self-aware. When I lost D, she'd waited 6 months and then used my grief as a launch pad for her fertility announcement. Every single time something happened to me, she'd found a way to make it about herself. To make herself seem more loving, more thoughtful, more together than I was. I documented everything. Not for a legal case, there was nothing legal about this. But for my own clarity. For my own understanding of what I was dealing with. And I shared that documentation with my therapist. My therapist said something that hit hard. She said, "Your sister doesn't actually hate you. If she did, it would be simpler. What she does is worse. She's built her entire identity around being better than you, and every time you succeed or struggle, she has to use that to reinforce her story about herself." That realization was actually healing, because it meant that her cruelty wasn't about me. It wasn't about anything I'd done or hadn't done. It was about her own insecurity and her own need to feel superior. And once I understood that, I could stop taking it personally. I could see it for what it actually was, a reflection of her damage, not a reflection of my worth. My parents eventually had to make a hard choice. They asked me point blank if I wanted them to maintain a relationship with T. I told them honestly that I didn't expect them to choose me. That they were her parents and they loved her. But I also told them that if they continued to excuse her behavior and try to convince me to get over it, they were going to damage their relationship with me. That there were consequences for enabling someone's cruelty. My dad chose to maintain limited contact with T. He set boundaries with her. He told her that he loved her, but he didn't accept her behavior toward me. He told her that if she wanted him in her life, she had to respect his relationship with me. He still saw her occasionally. He still saw Elle and eventually her new baby when it was born. But he wasn't pretending everything was okay. He wasn't enabling her narrative. He was being real about what had happened. My mom took longer to come around, but she eventually did something really important. She called T and she told her that she'd been thinking about everything that had happened. And she'd realized that she'd spent years making excuses for T's behavior. That she'd taught T that she could hurt people and that my mom would defend her anyway. And she said she wasn't going to do that anymore. She said she loved T, but she wasn't going to be complicit in T's cruelty. T actually got worse before things improved. She doubled down on being the victim. She told people that our parents had abandoned her, that they were choosing me over her, that I'd turned them against her. She was trying to create a narrative where she was the wronged party. But the thing about reality is that it tends to win eventually. When T's daughter was born, my parents went to meet her. They were supportive. They were present. But they didn't act like everything was fine with T. They didn't pretend that the past months hadn't happened. They were there for the baby and for my nephew, but they were honest about their boundaries with T. I didn't go. I sent a gift. A really nice gift. But I didn't go. And you know what was interesting? Nobody expected me to. Because everyone understood what had actually happened. And everyone understood why I'd made the choice I'd made. There was no social pressure for me to be there. There was just understanding. About 9 months after the birthday party, T finally did something that surprised me. She reached out through my therapist. Apparently, she'd started seeing a therapist too, and her therapist had suggested that maybe she owed me a real apology. Not a pseudo-apology. Not an apology for my feelings. An actual acknowledgement of what she'd done and why it was wrong. She asked if I'd be willing to meet with her therapist present. A mediated conversation. I was skeptical, but I also thought it would be worth understanding what she actually had to say. So I agreed. We met at her therapist's office. And for the first time in 9 months, T actually looked at me like I was a person instead of like I was a character in her narrative. Her therapist started by asking T to explain what she'd done at the birthday party. T actually cried when she described it. She said, "I announced my pregnancy plans using my sister's dead husband as a prop to make myself look good." Not softened. Not vague. Direct. Clear. Acknowledging what she'd actually done. Then she said something that broke something open for me. She said, "I've been jealous of my sister my entire life. And when her husband died, part of me felt relieved because finally something bad had happened to her. Finally, she wasn't the one with the perfect life. And I wanted to capitalize on that. I wanted to show everyone that I was moving forward with joy while she was stuck in grief. And that's disgusting. That's a disgusting thing to do to someone you're supposed to love." I cried. Not because I'd forgiven her, but because she'd finally actually seen what she'd done. She wasn't trying to minimize it. She wasn't trying to reframe it. She was just sitting with the reality of her own cruelty. Her therapist asked me what I needed from T in order to move forward. And I was honest. I said, "I need you to understand that what you did wasn't about being happy. It was about hurting me. And I need to know that you understand why that matters. And I need to know that you're going to do actual work to understand why you felt the need to do that in the first place." T said she understood. And she said she wasn't going to ask me to be close to her again. That she understood I might never forgive her. But she wanted to be honest about what she'd done and the damage she'd caused. After that meeting, things didn't magically get better. We didn't become close sisters. We didn't start hanging out. But something shifted. T stopped trying to control the narrative. She stopped telling people that I was cruel or overreacting. She actually started telling people the truth about what she'd done. And she started doing actual work on herself. It took about another year, But eventually my parents were able to have normal family dinners where T and I were both there. We weren't best friends. We're probably never going to be close. But we were cordial. We were honest. And most importantly, there was no pretense. No one was trying to rewrite history. No one was trying to make my pain into her story. The hardest part was accepting that even after T did her work and even after she acknowledged what she'd done, I still didn't want a close relationship with her. Some damage just doesn't heal the way you want it to. And that's okay. Not every relationship deserves to be salvaged. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is maintain distance and boundaries. My husband has been gone for 2 years now. The pain is different now. It's not suffocating. It's just there. A sadness that I carry with me. And I've learned to build a life without him. I've learned to be happy for people's good news without comparing it to my loss. And I've learned that family doesn't get automatic access to your healing journey just because they're related to you. T had her second baby about a year ago. I sent a gift. I don't hate her. I don't resent her happiness. But I also don't pretend that we have something we don't have. I set a boundary and I kept it. And that boundary protected me when I needed protection most. The truth about grief is that it makes you vulnerable. It makes you open to hurt in ways you weren't before. And there are people who will take advantage of that vulnerability. People who will use your pain to make themselves feel better. The best you can do is identify those people quickly and protect yourself. Because your grief is sacred. It's your pain to carry. And you don't have to let anyone weaponize it. If you've got a family member who makes your pain about their narrative, you're not obligated to let them. You're not obligated to forgive them or forget what they did. You're just obligated to yourself. Subscribe if you've had to set boundaries with family members over how they treat your grief.